to talk all things Cleveland Browns, all things NFL. We're going to head out to the fan hotline and welcome on of the MMQB, Albert Breer. Hey, Albert, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Oh, living the dream here. I mean, now that we've got the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce engagement news, I think we can all sleep soundly tonight because content is doing very well for us.
Yeah, it's interesting because like when I tweeted it out, that's exactly how I tweeted it to my wife, who was pretty excited and said she was very happy for Taylor Swift, who she's never met before.
I think everybody on this show
we all are. We're like, it's just a good thing.
The same interaction with our wives. I guess we'll start with the Kenny Pickett stuff, Albert. Does the Kenny Pickett saga, does this end up as a feather in Andrew Berry's cap? Does it end up as a mark against him that they weren't able to make this work in this quarterback room, or is it somewhere in between?
I think it's somewhere in between. I mean, I don't mind the move. I think, look, there's a lot of history over the years. The team's taking swings at quarterback, and if and it working out or it not working out. And, Andrew worked in the Eagles organization and has some of that background. And if you look at it, they've always taken swings, and so. I mean, for the most part, if you don't count the DTR part of it, you moved a fifth-round pick back a year to get a 4-month look at a guy who was a former first-round pick at quarterback, and in the end, you had him in position to compete for your starting job, and because of injury, that didn't work out. So you have the chance to get the pick back. Maybe you don't feel like you have not quite enough information on him. To turn down the trade offer, and that's that. And I think that's a pretty simple way to kind of summarize it. And then I'd say that the upshot for Browns fans is and I think this is a huge part of it, and it's something that not a lot of people are talking about, but it's also like a tacit admission or tacit acknowledgement from Andrew Berry and the Browns front office that they would feel comfortable putting Dillon Gabriel in a game tomorrow. Because if he's going to be your backup quarterback, you have to feel that way. So, ostensibly, Dillon Gabriel, now he didn't win it from Pickett because Pickett wasn't out there, but, ostensibly, Dillon Gabriel won the backup job, which is, a good thing for a guy who was a third-round pick. And a third-round pick that some people criticized.
No, I think that's the right read, is that in case Joe Flacco has an injury or something happens early on, they feel comfortable enough with Dillon Gabriel to be able to put him in there. Question I would have for you, though, is this now just a clear sign that they're going to try to play both rookies then in back of Joe Flacco? Or do you feel like there is even more of a possibility that we could see Deshaun Watson at some point later this year?
Well, I mean, I think I just... from my own information, and people have talked to me about this in very vague terms, so please take it that way. I think Watson's going to be cleared in October and November. I think it's going to be at some point in that general time range. So you're talking about middle of the season somewhere. He's going to be available, and then you're probably going to come to a point where you got to put him on your 53-man roster. That means walking away from a player. Is that player one of the quarterbacks? We'll see. But I think trading Pickett now sort of gets you ahead of that problem a little bit, where there's just no way you're going to carry 5 quarterbacks on your roster. So now your whole, 4 quarterback conundrum is solved for now and probably solved for later because you did feel comfortable and you had accounted for the idea that you were going to have 4 quarterbacks to begin with. And look, I think the whole piece of it about what this means as far as those guys playing, it certainly creates a clearer path for them to play. But I think the equation is still the same, right? Which is, as long as they're in the playoff hunt and Joe Flacco is playing well, which when the season starts, everyone's in the playoff hunt. You are going with Joe Flacco, and Flacco will be the quarterback. And I know there are a lot of people in that building that believe in Joe Flacco after seeing him for the last 4 months. And so the path to the field for Dillon Gabriel and Shador Sanders now is to continue to show it and prove it in practice. And then, if the team goes the wrong for 6 games this season, we don't need to go over the schedule again. We all know how tough it is. If things go the wrong way over that start to the season, then we're probably then talking about like, okay, 8 games in, 10 games in, 12 games in. Is this when you start to want to take a look at some other things in your roster with the rookie quarterbacks being part of that, and maybe Deshaun Watson being part of it too?
Albert, would you bet on Shador Sanders seeing the field this year or not seeing the field this year?
I think he probably will. I don't know. I mean, it's just so hard because, like, if I say that, then I'm saying they're going to be like 4-13 or something. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, do I think there's a chance of it happening? Sure. I think he needs to continue to do the things that will put him in position to get there, though. And I don't think he's there yet. I think a lot of the stuff that you saw in that game is reflective of what, like, NFL teams, the scouts, the coaches were saying about him after watching him on tape and meeting with him in the spring. It's just those flaws that were laid there in that game against the Rams. And so the drifting in the pocket, bailing out of the back of the pocket, being a little slow to process, not seeing it fast enough, being efficient as a mover, like all of that stuff, it didn't look good, and however many of the sacks you want to put on him, I'd say at least a few were very clearly his fault, So, you have to clean that stuff up, because I said this to you guys a million times, but a huge part of it is the other 10 guys in the huddle. And you have to give those other 10 guys in the huddle a chance to succeed and a chance to play high-level football. And if he comes into the huddle and he has trouble with the operation of it, or he can't do it properly, well, you're going to lose the team if you have him, running the show out there. So I think, Shador's, worked hard at it and gotten closer to it. He's got to kind of keep working in this direction. And I think the other piece of this, guys, is, Dillon Gabriel, of course, played 6 years of college football. He started games at 2 different schools. Set the NCAA record for starts in a career. Of course, he's more prepared. You know what I mean? Of course, he's more ready than Shador is to step in an NFL game, based on the amount of things that he's seen.
Albert Breer on the fan hotline here. We do have the Browns announcing their initial 53-man roster. Winston Reid was placed on reserve/injured, designated for return. Deshaun Watson placed on the PUP list. A reserved NFI, non-football injury, David Fry, and then the Browns have cut Dustin Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, Sam Kamara, Julian Okoro, Travion Williams. They've waived 9 other players. And a quick breakdown here. They're carrying, as we scroll, 3 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 4 tight ends, 10 linemen on both sides of the ball, 5 linebackers, 10 DBs, and 3 specialists, meaning as of right now, Andre Schmidt is your kicker. Sorry to put that weighty tome in the middle of the interview there. To specific to the Deontay Johnson thing, I did want to ask you, it was a quick fall from grace where like 3 weeks ago, we saw him in camp and he looked good. Is this all about football with Deontay, or is this maybe continued part of the Deontay show that has cost him his career over the last 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it is whether or not you can trust him. You know what I mean? If you give him a spot on the team and he doesn't have a certain role, is he going to do all the right things? And that's important, A lot of times with guys like him, like, you can keep them in line if they've got a real role, right? Like if they're a starter, but if the guy like that's not a starter, are you better off keeping him in where maybe you're not sure you can trust him? Or are you better having a younger developmental player in that spot? I think that's sort of what it comes down to when we're talking about those things. It's also, part of it's a function of your special teams value and what was he bringing from a special teams standpoint, because once you get down, your 4th receiver, your 5th receiver, your 6th receiver, now you're talking about those guys having to contribute to the team in other ways, like outside just the offense. So, I just think Deontay Johnson is one of those guys where if he shows you that he can catch 50, 60, 70 balls, or that he's going to be that guy for you, then you're willing to maybe take the risk. And then beyond that, you have to figure out whether or not you trust him. If he's going to play a smaller role, I could definitely see where a team would say, well, it's just not worth worth the headache to have him around based on how we maybe project this playing out after everything that happened in Carolina and Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
Albert, I want to ask you, as it looks like the Browns are only going to carry 2 running backs right now, so they'll probably have an addition at some point before week 1, but it leads me to Quinnshon Judkins. Mike Florio was on the station yesterday, and I don't know if you saw it. He wrote about it at ProFootballTalk.com as well. He did this with Shamar Stewart. He did it with Shador as well, the idea that they could just go back to college. Is there any viability with that, and where do we stand with Quinnshon?
Well, I wouldn't mind having him on Saturday if that's what you guys are I just see it as pretty unlikely. I think I want to make sure I have this right. Mike would do better than me to spelled it out for you, but I think it is technically against the rules once you declare for the draft to go back in, or once you hire an agent. But a lot of those rules have been challenged in court, and the NCAA hasn't shown much resistance, right? Is that it?
Yeah, and so what you'd be doing, you'd go to the court and you'd ask for the judge on the basis of antitrust laws, and then he is playing with the idea that the judge would grant that, which I think is a leap, but it's a logical leap.
Right. So, I mean, I just think you have to think about it from Quinnshon Judkins' point of view. Is is it worth doing that? You know what I mean? And I think maybe some of that would boil down to how much money he can get to go back to college. But at this point, wouldn't it be hard for him to play anywhere but Ohio State or Ole Miss, right? I would think those would be the only 2 places where he could assimilate quick enough to make a difference based on the juncture in the calendar that we're in right now. So is it possible to do that? Maybe. I don't see. I would trust Mike on the idea that you could get through the court and back onto the field, right? That makes sense to me. My question would be for a player like that, who already went through the pre-draft process and everything else, whether you would want to subject yourself to all of it again. And, my guess would be that that would be a ton of work to go through with maybe minimal benefit when you still have a second-round contract out there for you.
Albert, Ohio State, Texas this weekend. You are an alum. You're very excited for this one, I'm guessing. It's in Columbus. Now that we're this close to it, what's your confidence level that Ohio State's going to get the dub this weekend?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's still a lot of unknown. I would love to say, I think they're going to kill them. I don't think that's the case. It sounds to me like these and again, I don't not studying these teams the way I am NFL teams going into the season, but it sounds to me like they're going to be 2, at least early in the season, pretty defensive-oriented teams. I sort of expect, I don't know, a 13-10, 17-13, that sort of game. But I feel good about, where the team's at, and how the team's going to look in October and November. It's just how quickly some of those guys get up to speed. Obviously, it's a quarterback, but it's also, some new offensive line coming in. The interior of the D-line. It's a little different than last year. So, and then there's the new coordinators too, which is double because it's they're inexperienced, but there also could be some wrinkles that Texas has no idea are coming. I'm excited to get there. I actually get there Friday night, so it'll be great.
Nice.
How do you think Matt Patricia, knowing him the way you do, how do you think he's going to adopt to this?
I've been around him a little bit, since he got there. I would say, he is so excited to be there, and the hands-on teaching that he's been able to do has been, I think it's been really kind of refreshing for him and getting to go and focus on football and just football. The way that he's been able to, there over the last 6-7 months since he got. So I think one thing I know about Matt is he's a good teacher, and he's really good at finding ways to get the most. And so I would expect that the defense is going to look different than it looks in the playoffs, obviously under Jim Knowles. And I think Rich Manning in his first game, I know he started 2 games last year, but his first game as a college starter, I would think there's going to be a ton of stuff thrown at him that he's never seen before. Which with veteran players like Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles and Davis and Igbinosun, I think he should be able to do some cool stuff with some of those guys.
Albert, excited for this weekend, Ohio State, Texas. We are appreciative of your time as always. Great stuff, my guy.
All right. Thanks, guys. Go Bucks.
Thank you. Go Bucks.